I'm told we have some animation. What?
Love Hate.
Wow. Love Hate is next.
Wow, what was that?
That was animation. That was brand new animation.
Okay, I like
Surprise.
it.
Yeah.
In favor.
All right, we are starting with running backs for Love Hate. Obviously, a group that I'm sure you have poured hours over, Barry. So there's rumors that the intro for Love Hate actually takes you just as long as the fantasy
1,000%.
analysis.
1,000%.
But today we will stick to the analysis.
Because honestly, the truth of the matter is I've done the analysis all the offseason.
Right.
It's just a matter of like I've done the. But when I, not to get too far into process, but like when I sit down to write Love Hate, I already have done the research, and I've had help with the research as well. We have a crack team here at NBC Sports, and so it's a matter of then now it's just, okay, how can I write this and make it interesting and fun, and make my point. But like that part is more putting stuff together, if that makes any sense, than it is quote unquote original. Because at that, I already know before I sit down to write, I already know like, this guy's going to make the love list. This guy's going to be on the hate list. And so it's like taking the research and writing it. Whereas my opening story is always just like from scratch. You know what I mean? And it's just, I care a lot about it. And when fans come up to me on the street or, reach out to me, however, many more times than not, it is, I love the story about fill in the blank, right? It's never thank you for Darren Waller's rookie year, it's never like, thank you for Jalen Hurts last year or whatever. It's always, I love the story about your daughter breaking her arms or the bullying column or when you had the heart attack or like, no, it's like there's all these, when you and your wife bought your first house or your father-in-law or like people have different, they always have a favorite column and it's always a different one. It's rare that it's there's not like three that always come up. It's always something different that people resonate with, or that resonates with them. So, yes, I do. I take a lot of time with it, and I think, and I really like the opening story of this. I really think this is a good one. I think it's a good one.
Good teaser.
Now
you have to go read it, even if you listen to all the analysis.
It's a really good story
today.
Yeah, it's about my broken arm.
So. It is not. Jay is not mentioned. Oh, you know what? Actually, there is a Jay Croucher reference in the opening story.
I look forward to it. Then.
Yeah. See if it's insulting or complimentary.
Insulting's a -3 in favor. I like it.
Yeah. So if it's not there, I can just blame the editors who are drinking for free.
We kick off the running back love list with the player that I tried so hard to pitch as a ride or die, and his ADP has gone up so high, Matthew Berry, that it's too obvious at this point in Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, he's my running back 3, and obviously the idea of love-hate isn't, is all about, it's not about the player, it's about the ADP, what it costs to acquire that player. And I think the idea here is that players that are on the love list, we should just start off with this. Players that are on the love list are players that I think either exceed their ADP or that have a chance to take a real step up that end up outperforming their ADP or provide, a real value. And so, and players that are on the hate list, conversely, are either players that I think are going too high or won't return the value of where they're being drafted. So it's either people that are, that have the right ADP and will return value plus or, return value minus. All right, and so Bijan Robinson, I'm at running back 3. He's going towards the end of the first round. But number 1 running back in fantasy is well within the range of outcomes for Bijan Robinson this year. We know how run-heavy Atlanta is, right? Last year, they led the NFL in running back rushing yards. They had the second most running back carries, and that was with guys like Algier and Cordero Patterson. And so now Bijan Robinson, the draft capital, very quietly, the Falcons have a much better than average offensive line. I think their offensive line is underrated. Desmond Ridder should be better than Marcus Mariota last year to move the pocket, and if he doesn't, they have a competent backup in Taylor Heineke. Remember, since 2012, there have been 6 different running backs that have been taken inside the top 10. Here they are. Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, and Trent Richardson. Those 6 running backs combined to average 295 touches in their rookie year. 4 of the 6 got 300 or more touches. Monster season coming here for Bijan Robinson, who, by the way, after I interviewed him at the NFLPA rookie premiere, I was just like, you're awesome, dude. You get a sense when you talk to players, you get a sense of this guy's kind of a knucklehead, or this guy really understands that this is a business and you need to take it seriously. And I came away insanely impressed with Bijan Robinson, obviously not just as a football player, but as a person.
Yeah, I think the concern about Bijan would be Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson eating in to his carries just because Arthur Smith was sent down from the heavens to ruin lives of fantasy managers, as he has done, as he did with Kyle Pitts last year. At the same time, though, I think that the draft capital spent on Bijan is you don't spend a top 10 pick on Bijan Robinson to put him in a 45% timeshare with Algier and Cordarrelle Patterson. And so long as he's at
it's not like he's a tight end.
Yeah.
Like Kyle Pitts. No, exactly. No.
And even if he is at 50, 55% of carries, he should get enough work as a receiver still.
That's
but I
the
think
key.
that he should be above that in any case.
They're going to use him super creatively. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that the hope is, even if they try to run between the tackles with some of those other guys, is that Bijan can motion out into the slot. He could do a lot of different things for you. So that's the hope. Putting your hope in Arthur Smith, we'll see how it goes. But to counter, we've seen him use Derrick Henry as a workhorse like no other in this league.
1,000%. I think he got over the 2 years that Smith was offense coordinator in Tennessee, like he had over 700 carries. Derrick Henry did. So, listen, he's almost too obvious to put on the love list. Again, Bijan's going in the first round, but I thought I could get away with it in the sense that that is within the. I have him higher in the overall consensus than I think people do, and literally number one running back in fantasy as well within the range of outcomes for him.
All right, that brings us to our next guy, Nick Chubb. He comes in as RB5 for you, Barry. 4 straight seasons, averaging at least 100 scrimmage yards per game. As we see Deshaun Watson still trying to shake off the rust, they have a guy in the backfield that they can always lean on, and no more Kareem Hunt in Cleveland.
Yeah, by the way, that's 158 touches that are now up for grabs with Hunt no longer there. Jerome Ford, we like him as kind of a sleeper late-round guy, but he has 8 career touches. Nick Chubb, pound for pound, is like the best pure running back in the NFL. Forget fantasy for a second, but just from a pure skill standpoint, is the best running back in the NFL. Every season of his career, he's had at least 8 touchdowns, so there's a floor there. And by the way, almost a 7.5% target share last year, which wasn't amazing, but it's not a nothing. And if we can get that to 10% this year, I think especially with Hunt out the door, maybe they use him more. We think this is going to be a more up-tempo offense. It's going to be more pass-happy, more fantasy-friendly with Deshaun Watson. We're hoping that the old Deshaun Watson comes back as it relates to this Browns offense. But, Nick Chubb is somebody that's going to touch the ball a lot, and I think he's going to see less 8-man fronts because of what we think will be a improved passing game for the Browns.
Yeah, Nick Chubb right now is going as a second-round pick. I'd rather have Nick Chubb than Saquon Barkley, just straight up. I think that people underrate Chubb because it's so ingrained, the timeshare that he had with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's not there anymore. And there was a concern that Deshaun Watson was going to be airing it out and this is going to be a passing offense. Well, it seems like Deshaun Watson might not be that good yet, based on preseason reports. And if he is good, it's going to mean more touchdown opportunities for Chubb. If he's not good, it's going to mean more volume for Chubb in terms of carries. So either way, I think that Chubb, so long as he stays healthy, should be a top 3 running back.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I think that if Watson's any good at all, they'll be in scoring opportunity more, and maybe Chubb has less touches, but they're much more efficient. And again, he's seeing less loaded boxes because previously it was just sort of like, we're just going to stack the box and we'll dare the Browns to beat us through the air. We're not scared of whether it's Jacoby Brissett or Baker Mayfield or any of the guys they've had back there. And so hopefully Watson gives them the vertical threat that they haven't had at the quarterback position, which means that they have to respect Amari Cooper and David Njoku, Cedric Tillman, and of course, the ubiquitous Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Very ubiquitous.
Jay, you brought up the timeshare coming to an end in Cleveland for Chubb and Kareem Hunt. The same could be said about Barry's RB6, the next on the love list, and Tony Pollard. Ezekiel Elliott, officially a New England Patriot. The backfield in Dallas, officially Tony Pollard's.
Yeah, again, I don't understand why Saquon is going as pick 8 and Tony Pollard's going at pick 17. I might even prefer to just have Tony Pollard straight up. I think it's gone under the radar that weeks 7 to 16 last year, Tony Pollard was the number 1 running back in fantasy. What he offers as a receiver, I think the concerns about him being able to take on a featured back workload are just unfounded.
He's not small. I don't understand this narrative.
He's not Darren Sproles. So I think that Pollard, in an offense which is going to be, I just think, completely monstrous, and he's going to be in scoring position. If he's not, he's going to get into scoring position. So I think that he has a chance to be the number 1 player in fantasy.
That's within the range of outcomes as well. He was somebody that was also on my short list of potential fantasy ride or dies. He's right there on the cover of the Roto World Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Promo code Barry20 gets you 20% off. Promo code J10 gets you 10% off, or Connor 5, or Lawrence 1. And the other thing about Tony Pollard that I'll tell you here, I think this is a crazy stat. I put this in my 100 facts. Last year he had 9 rushing touchdowns. Okay, yeah, that's great. 9 rushing touchdowns, that's pretty good. He got 12 carries inside the 10-yard line. That's it. Like, he converted 9 of them, right? So 9 rushing touchdowns despite only 12 carries inside an opponent's 10-yard lines. That's tied for 30th among running backs, and some of them were even in, some of them were longer runs as well to get into the end zone. Think about how many goal line carries Ezekiel Elliott leaves on the table. That's the thing, is that, Zeke last year had kind of lost the starting job to Tony Pollard, but when they got in close, they still gave it to Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott still had a very good rushing touchdown year last year, and now he's gone. And so, yes, number 1 running back in fantasy is well within the grasp of Tony Pollard. He has 13 career games where he's had 15 or more touches. We certainly expect him to get at least 15 touches a game for the Cowboys while he's healthy. And in those 13 career games with 15 or more touches, he averages 19.6 fantasy points per game. That would have been running back 3 last year. Again, I'm at running back 6 overall. I am higher some of those guys. I'm around ahead in my overall ADP than where he's going. Monster season coming from Tony Pollard.
Yeah, last thing on Pollard, I think back to the Minnesota game where Dallas just completely annihilated them. Pollard, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns as a receiver on 6 receptions, then also had 15 for 80 on the ground. Like, when he is on, it just looks like he's playing a different sport because of how explosive he can be as a receiver as well.
How about the new-look Lions backfield here? We kicked this off with Bijan Robinson, a rookie. How about Jahmyr Gibbs, another rookie taken in the top 15 in the draft, paired with David Montgomery? It feels like there's plenty there, Barry, for the usage for both of them to be extremely effective in fantasy. They're dealing with a thin wide receiver situation with the Jameson Williams suspension, and Gibbs' usage in the pass game is expected to be special.
Fantastic. That's true, Connor. That's an excellent point. So DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, 421 running back touches between them that are now up for grabs, and those are going to go to both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. To your point, Jameson Williams out for the first 6 games. TJ Hawkinson, now a member of the Minnesota Vikings. After Amon-Ra St. Brown, my fantasy football ride or die, there's not a lot out on that Lions offense that demands touches except these 2 running backs. Very quietly, the Lions have one of the best offensive lines in football. They want to pound the rock with David Montgomery. They want to throw to Jahmyr Gibbs. Remember, DeAndre Swift, despite missing all the time he has over the last 3 seasons, he still finished as a top 15 fantasy running back on a points-per-game basis for the Detroit Lions. 11 of the last 12 running backs we drafted in the first round. We all saw the video of Gibbs going 12 and the Lions being so excited that they got him. They were worried they weren't going to get him at 12. 11 of the last 12 running backs to be drafted in the first round saw at least 200 touches in their rookie season. Both of these guys are going to touch the ball a ton. I think both are values where they're going, especially Montgomery. Again, I'm not saying he gets 18 touchdowns again, but they do want to pound him into the line. They do want to run the rock with him. He is going to inherit that role on a team that we think is going to be a pretty good offense and scoring position often. The last thing I'll say is, as you know, the opening game of the NFL season is Lions at Chiefs. It's right here on NBC and Peacock. I'm a company man. Well, our colleague and our friend Jason Garrett actually went to Lions camp to interview Dan Campbell, and you'll see that interview as part of Football Night in America on September 7th. But he just told me, he said, I was at Lions camp and just looking around, and, I spent a couple of days there, so I was interviewing people and interviewing Dan for FNIA, and he said they love David Montgomery. It's clear how they feel about Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of how they drafted him, how they reacted, but he's just like, they really think Montgomery is somebody that can just, pound the ball between the tackles and just, like, he's going to get 200 touches this year, easy.
Yep, and the underrated thing with Detroit, which you've talked about in talking about your Amon-Ra ride or die pick, is that the last 10 games of the season, they're only exposed to weather once when they play at Chicago, who don't have a great defense anyway. Outside of that, it's domes, it's retractable roofs, and Jared Goff don't like the cold. It's like Matthew Berry doesn't like the cold.
No.
And he is much more effective when he's playing not exposed to weather, so I think that they're going to be in scoring position plenty.
Yeah, at least 230 touches and over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in all 4 seasons in Chicago. No one likes David Montgomery. He's not exciting. He's not sexy. But all he's going to do is produce. I'm at running back 24, and honestly, I might be too low on him.
A couple other running backs.
And I'm higher on him than consensus.
That received votes here. James Conner, James Cook, who's looked really good this summer, Isaiah Pacheco, lead back of the Chiefs, is always nice to have. Samaje Perine as Javonte Williams works his way back from serious injury in Denver. And then, of course, we've talked about Jaylen Warren a lot this week, Barry, eating into the Steelers' backfield.
I think there's a chance that I feel there's a very good chance that at cost, Jaylen Warren is a much better fantasy play this year than Najee Harris. We've talked about Samaje Perine again. Sean Payton gave 150 touches to multiple running backs in 5 of his final 6 seasons with the Saints. He is going to be a part of that Broncos offense. We talked about Pacheco as well. Final 8 games of the season last year, top 5 in the NFL in rushing yards, and his passing game usage, especially in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, sort of goes, oh, maybe he's no longer a 7th-round rookie trying to find the field. Now he's a Super Bowl champion and the starting running back of one of the best offenses of the NFL, which is what you can say about James Cook. Everything you've seen in the preseason is like, this is going to be the James Cook show in Buffalo. I was in a draft last night, and I managed to get both Josh Allen and James Cook, and it's just like, okay, good. I pretty much am guaranteed a piece of every Bills touchdown this year. I like my odds in that league. And then finally, James Conner is kind of the poster boy for cheap volume. Dameon Pierce, Cam Akers are other guys on that list of guys that can flirt with 20 touches a game. And despite the fact that they are on bad teams, they're not coming off the field, and they're going to touch the ball a lot. Volume is king in fantasy football. So I think James Conner is way underrated.
James Cook is the interesting one to me. I think people are just sleeping on the Bills in general because of how their season ended and the playoff loss to the Bengals. But, I mean, James Cook has the chance to be the featured lead back for potentially the best offense in football. That's very much in the range of outcomes for Buffalo. And he's going right now as RB30. And I think whereas someone like Pacheco probably has more of a ceiling that is defined just because McKinnon is there and because they pass so much, I think James Cook could be a top 12 running back this year.
All right, we kick off the hate list here, Jay, with J.K. Dobbins, who, as we've discussed this summer, kind of a weird training camp situation for Baltimore. Took him a while to come back. He's dealt with a lot of injury throughout his career in Baltimore after being a 2nd-round pick at running back, which is pretty substantial. 0 career games with more than 17 touches. He's Barry's RB28. What are your expectations for Dobbins this year?
Just bad vibes around J.K. Dobbins leading into this season. And I think the concern is just what's the ceiling for his workload? Because he didn't get 20 carries in a game last year, and a lot of that was without Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is obviously going to be a huge part of the running game there, and allegedly they're going to throw it a lot more. They just have more wide receivers, more mouths to feed. Expect Mark Andrews will be better this year and healthier. So I'm just not really sure what Dobbins' ceiling is.
Yeah, I mean, so again, we talk about this. In essence, to be a fantasy force, you need 3 things. You need volume, you need passing game usage, you need touchdowns. And 2 of the 3 are out the window. He's not getting volume, right? He's never had a game in his career with more than 17 touches. Never, right? They've got Melvin Gordon there who's still solid. They've got Gus Edwards there. Oh, by the way, they've got Lamar Jackson on a team that was bottom 5 in the NFL the last 2 years in running back carries. And now they've got Todd Monken, who we know likes to throw the ball. So he's not getting volume. And then you're like, oh, well, maybe he'll get some passing game work. He has 1 game in his entire career with more than 25 receiving yards. He's almost a nothing in the passing game so far throughout his career, right? He has for his career, a 5.6% target share. So you're like, well, maybe he could score. And definitely, we think this is going to be a high-octane offense, and certainly that's certainly an argument you can make for J.K. Dobbins. If he's on the field. This is somebody who has missed significant time throughout his NFL career. And that's before you even get to the weird vibes of he was holding out. Is he in camp? Is he not? I'm looking at this on Yahoo, and here's some of the guys that he's going ahead of on Yahoo that I'd prefer any of these guys over J.K. Dobbins. He's going ahead of Dameon Pierce. He's going ahead of Cam Akers. He's going ahead of James Conner. He's going ahead of Alexander Madison. He's going ahead of Isaiah Pacheco.
That's wild.
I mean, yeah, man.
Ahead of Pierce is alarming to me.
Pierce is, we're not talking about him on the show. He is in the love-hate column. Pierce's ADP is mind-boggling to me.
Agreed.
The last one here on the running back hate list.
Dameon Pierce on the love list. James Cook is going, many rounds after J.K. Dobbins, and I think there's a better than average chance straight up that Cook has a better year.
Our last running back on the hate list for today, Alvin Kamara. We know that he's dealing with the suspension going into the year, but Barry, the biggest piece besides that is that he's also dealing with a very crowded backfield. A 3rd-round pick in Kendre Miller, who appears as healthy now after being a little banged up middle of summer, and of course the ultimate touchdown vulture in Jamal Williams.
And by the way, an emerging Chris Olave. And if you were to listen to one of my top 10 Australians in my life.
Did I make the Australian love list?
Yeah, you make the Australian love list.
Great, man.
By the way,
accomplishment.
right. By the way, you should ask me to name 10 Australians because I'm not sure I can. Kylie
Minogue.
Yeah, Kylie Minogue, right? Nicole Kidman, right?
Bluey.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see, Bluey. Colin Hay of Men at Work. Paul Hogan.
Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, Kate Blanchett. Yeah.
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. The Hemsworths.
Yeah.
All three.
They only count as one.
No. I get all three. I get all three Hemsworth brothers. Even though only two of them were famous. And Hugh Jackman.
Yeah,
Hugh Jackman and Yahoo Serious.
There you go.
It's the easiest
So I
10
slot
ever.
in between Luke and Liam Hemsworth. Yeah.
I mean, below Liam, but you're others receiving
We're there
votes.
with Luke.
Here's what I'll say about Alvin Kamara, though.
Not Australian.
Not Australian.
Yes.
No,
Might be playing Australian football soon.
He might. He hasn't been right. So in addition to the fact that they've got other guys there, right? No, what I was going to say. By the way, if you were listening to Jay Croucher, Michael Thomas is going to have a thing this year, right? You've got Juwan Johnson as well, right?
A show or two where he's just said that.
Week 9 on last year, he was the 36th best running back in fantasy football on a points per game basis. The receiving work seems to have dried up a little bit. Under 35 receiving yards, under 33 receiving yards to be clear per game last season. Derek Carr, jury's still out on whether Derek Carr is going to pepper him with targets the way that Drew Brees did. That was when Alvin Kamara was Alvin Kamara in capital letters. So this is something I wrote in my column. But remember that game a couple of years ago where he hit that last game of the season he scored 6 rushing touchdowns
On Christmas.
On
against
Christmas.
Minnesota.
On Christmas.
Everyone remembers that game.
Right.
Everyone was watching it.
Okay. Since that game, he's scored 6 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
In the years since that game, in 2 seasons, he's scored 6 rushing touchdowns. He only scored in 2 games last season. Because they've got Taysom Hill there, they've got Jamal Williams, who proved last year he's very effective at the goal line. I know you like Kendre Miller coming out of college as well. That's a guy that can bang between the tackles as well. They have a lot of options to score other than Alvin Kamara if he's even out there, because he's missing the first 3 games because of the suspension, and this is somebody that has also dealt with injuries the last couple of years.
Just doesn't get the receiving work anymore. He was over 80 receptions each of his first 4 seasons, and it's been 104 total across the past 2.
Yeah, that's less than 55 a year. Did that math in my head.
Incredible.
Look at that. Absolutely. Look at me. I got a computer up here. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.